Can anyone catch them, do you think?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, unbelievable. We didn't expect that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Abegonas podcast. So this is a review of the Burnley game. Actually, I don't know if I have to put it as a happy review or something that's. Any 3 points is a happy review for Arsenal, isn't it, guys? So let's put it as a happy review for the Burnley game. We've got Arun back with us. Hi, Arun.
Hello.
Hi, Bob.
Good day, guys.
Hi, Deepak. Welcome back.
Hello.
So before we start, we are being reminded always to say that we have to mention to our viewers, like, share, and subscribe, and comment in any questions. We keep missing that, and someone or the other is pinging us in some social media and asking us to add that. So we are adding that right here.
And we do have people pinging us on social media to ask us.
I was trying to make that point as subtle as possible.
Why subtle? Let's tell the truth. Let's flaunt it.
But anyways, Arun, I'll start with you regarding this, right? Burnley game, 3 points. We were expecting a win, except Deepak. Deepak was expecting a draw, but most of us were
I don't blame him. I don't.
But that is the bare minimum that Arsenal can do, that they could get 3 points against Burnley, at least.
Are you sure about that? The club has surprised us in ways that you never thought was possible. So I wouldn't say it was like the least thing that they could do, getting 3 points away in Burnley.
No, as in like with the respect to Arsenal fans' expectation, that is the bare minimum. 1-0 victory over Burnley for 3 points, for a total of 6 points in the table. So, are you happy? What's your reaction to that?
I'm definitely happy. Like, at this point, I am not looking at the team to like create a million chances and score like 1,000 goals. No, people might come back at me saying that, yeah, we don't want to see creating million chances, but we want to see 5 chances to be created. I totally understand that point, but right now I am not really worried about it. We played an away game at a place where we struggle even during Wenger days. Even if we did manage to nick off a win here and there, we have always struggled at Turf. It's not a fun place to go. The players are very physical. Usually we come out with a card or an injury, So this time we didn't come out. There were no cards, no injuries. We came out with the full team, and there was like a lot of nice things that happened right from minute one, right from kickoff. Like the intent that the team showed in terms of making sure that we did not lose the ball in dangerous areas, making sure that we did not give Burnley chances, making sure that their potent points of attack were nullified, and sort of gave me like an assured feeling throughout the game. Even if we did lose a ball sometimes, even if there was some turnovers. Oh no, I didn't see any turnovers. Yeah, even if there was some balls lost, it always felt like we were never in danger of conceding a goal. And that feeling as an Arsenal fan seemed very new. I don't remember the last time we actually felt like, okay, we've lost the ball to the opposition. It doesn't matter who the opposition is. When we lose the ball and they get near the box, we get this feeling of dread, like, okay, this is definitely going to go for a goal. That didn't seem to have happened yesterday. Everyone put their best foot forward, even if it didn't yield the best results. They did put their best foot forward, and in a transition phase, I would take these 3 points, or I would not complain at all. I would love to take these 3 points.
Definitely, but also, so let me put this up, that you have mentioned Wenger teams. I have to bring back this game a couple of seasons ago and stuff like that. So let's put this up as a numbers perspective or results perspective. So 2014 and 15, at this point, at the 5-game week point, we had 9 points and we had a +4 of goal difference. That's the last time we finished in top 4. apart from if you consider that Leicester season, freak of a Leicester season. And last year we had 9 points again, and that was, last season was last season. We know what happened last season, and this season we have only 6 points. But the clinch is, if you consider the Wenger years, we have already met Everton, Leicester, City. All games have happened, and we have drawn all 3. And to draw a comparison with this time, we have only met City and Chelsea in the top 6 or top 8 draw, and we have lost both games. And the interesting fact is, the next game during that season was Tottenham, and we know what is the next game in our season. So that's just to put a perspective on where we are compared to yesteryears, because that's a question, Bob. Are we this, like when Arun was mentioning that we should be happy with the 3 points, right? Is this because of all this? Like, we have lost this much, we have ended up with 8th position, 10th position. Is this because of this? We have, as fans, have we come up with low expectations for this team, or is this genuinely a good result?
See, I feel it's a mix of both, to be honest with you. So we are actually, first of all, this team is not Wenger's team. Wenger is no longer here. So we've been moving on. We've had a lot of transition phase, and still we are in transition. There is a lot of things that we need to improve upon, both in terms of the personnel and in terms of the results that we need to get. We did win FA Cup and all those sort of things in between, but yeah, in terms of the league position, we're nowhere near how we used to be during Wenger years. So it's like a weird scenario where you're in a transition, but at the same time, we still have to start, producing results for us to keep moving up towards the ladder. And for that, this win was very vital, especially at the back of the first 3 games which we lost. There was a lot of negativity, and there was a lot of things going around in the stadium. We have been managed by a rookie manager, and so every loss that we actually do will fall directly onto him, and then his tactics and things would be questioned on. Mm-hmm. So in that note, we just have to take it, those 3 points. It's just a thing, whether this victory was deserved. Of course, I think we deserved this victory, but were we up to our best? Probably no. We all know that answer to that question. So we're still in transition. There are a lot of places where we need to improve, and we need to improve quickly, because the league is so tough that almost every game that we lose or slip down will mean that it will bite us at the back towards the end of it. So although 3 points is what it counts, if you look at individually as a game, we still can't bask on these glories as this win as something which is going to take us more. We need to massively improve. We just have to be very cautious, optimistic, and then of course keep working on, because as you just pointed out, the next opposition is not going to be an easy one, although they did lose 3-0 at their home, but yeah, I think it's important that we have to look at this victory, but we shouldn't be getting too much carried away with that.
Being carried away though, Deepak, you have mentioned about Arteta, right? That he's on a very short leash for the entire duration. Winning 1-0 against a couple of oppositions is, at least to my opinion, not going to give him a lot of footing in the slide of Arsenal or whatever, right? If he has to stay, if he has to prove himself as the man to be in charge of for the future of Arsenal, he needs to do more than just score 1-0. You predicted a 1-1, and the team winning 1-0 was a positive, but again, so how much of this win is going to be going into Arteta's credit? Or is it not going into Arteta's credit? Does that mean he has to do more to gain some credit from Arsenal fans, from the Arsenal board, from everyone else?
Win is always a credit to the manager, like 1-0. So we should give credit to him. We criticize him when we lose. So of course, winning 1-0 is like a credit to him. But on the point of proving more, exactly, he has to prove more. We just won against 2 lowly oppositions. and we got 6 points and we just scored 2 goals. One was a lucky deflection and one was a great free kick. So still our attacking play is what I say, it's turgid and doesn't seem to be clicking. So he has to definitely improve on that front. As an entire team, we haven't clicked like till now. It's been like almost 2 full seasons. Like we haven't seen a complete game from Arsenal. Do you remember even last season, any game which we played? Probably like against West Brom. Apart from that, I haven't seen one game under Arteta where the entire team performed well, like defense, midfield, and forward. So I wouldn't be like so happy with this Burnley win. Like it's like a small baby steps. Like let's say like take it slowly and if we draw or like lose against Tottenham, it's like taking another 2 steps back. Tottenham is also in not that great form. They just won like 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, and they lost 3-0 like the next 2 games. So we have to perform against Tottenham. As I said, like previous parts, the Watford game is like till the Watford game, it's a litmus test. He should get 18 points. If not, we are not moving forward at all. We cannot like simply keep on saying we will give time. This team needs time to gel. We are giving time till October, and he has to show like we have 18 points on board. What like judges a manager? The points on the board. So that's the thing.
Yeah, true. That is the thing, and and good thing is Arsenal has put points on board at least in the last 2 games, and we are climbing up the ladder. But the important thing for me is, Bob, that we have come up with 2 clean sheets. More than anything else, those 2 clean sheets are what I feel very confident, because that is an area that was addressed in this transfer market. That is the area of focus for this transfer market, and that seems to be working. Although we have our scary moments, we're not being that dominant, but that is to be expected out of a new back 4 that is being assembled right out of transfer market. And so on the point of defense, though, let's start with Ramsdale, because we have been talking about him and Leno sharing the goalkeeping duties and everything. I am very impressed with whatever I'm seeing of Ramsdale, but it is a very small sample size, and there is no disrespect to Leno. But there are also like other things that's happening. Like it's not just the goal stopping abilities, but also the passing ability, the confidence that he exudes. Those are things that I find as positive with Ramsdale. So what are your thoughts on Ramsdale being the number 1 and just being that presence there?
Credit where it's due. So I'm very happy that Ramsdale has actually made a lot of the so-called Arsenal fans eat humble pie, because of his performances. You did mention about his abilities and all those sort of things. One of the things which actually stood out for me is his command at the back. I noticed there was actually comparisons as well that I noticed on Twitter, where in a similar situation when Ramsdale or Leno was actually passing the ball to Xhaka, there was no call out from Leno to say that there was a man behind, and then Xhaka needs to be more careful. But at the same time, the same thing happened between Ramsdale and Partey. Ramsdale was quick to point out that there was a man from behind, and then he needs to be more careful about that. I mean, it just makes it so much difference, I mean, even the last attack that he did when Tierney was down, I mean, it's just that, you can't be just bullied over. And I felt that most often with Leno at the back, that he can be bullied over. And same thing, I mean, when we looked at the first goal that Brentford scored, Leno was bullied all over. I think those are the things which makes a difference. Of course, as you said, there's still a long way to go for him to be established as a top goalkeeper. But he's showing a lot of signs, and we just can talk with what we've seen in front of us. If I were the manager, I would straight away put him on the team against Tottenham. Even though he's been giving assurances for Leno to start. I would say that his form needs to continue, and I see them. If he performs at his level, I just see him going places. That's what I could think of. Yeah, awesome addition to the squad. I've never doubted him, despite many other people, thinking otherwise. It's just that it's very vindicative, and I'm happy that the club has actually put all their things on Ramsdale, and they're being rewarded so far. So it's a good sign to take.
Yeah, it is really a good sign. But Deepak, oh sorry,
One
yeah,
more
go
thing,
ahead.
if I were to mention about Ramsdale, it's like Bob said, he does all that, but he does it with a lot of confidence.
Yes.
When you do that with so much of confidence, you do the right thing with so much of confidence, it rubs on to the people around you, it rubs on to the fans on the stadium, so of course, but if it does go wrong, he'll end up looking like like a clown, but then thankfully hope that shouldn't happen, but hopefully that shouldn't happen. But like in terms of the confidence, that was very refreshing to see, like a goalkeeper who knew what he was doing, and like who knew, okay, I am going to do this, and I'm going to do in such a way that you will know that was in my head all the time. It was no fluke. So that was like really refreshing to see.
Yeah, but so I was about to ask Deepak the same question, right? About Ramsdale and the penalty shout that they had. Bob mentioned that about his tug when Tierney was down. That was a completely different thing, where his confidence and his standing up for team was there, but also his presence of mind when White did that pass, which was not good. I mean, we will get back to White. We will get back to White, but again, right? So when we are talking about that penalty shout that they had, it was a clean, ball tackle that he did, right? And there was no question when they went to VAR. There was no question, although we as Arsenal fans are always worried about VAR. so yeah, what are your thoughts on that moment from Ramsdale?
Yeah, he was like quick off the line. That shows like he's like seeing the game properly, like not like just like in his own world or something. So even though he didn't have a lot of things to do in the match, he was like alert enough to come out of the line soon and get the ball. Yeah, I thought, yeah, as you said, I thought the VAR wouldn't overtime given Arsenal. So, but
History reversed.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah, he had a good performance. So I wouldn't like just drop him like just to give chance for make Leno happy. Like Leno has to prove. Let Leno start in Wimbledon and like against Wimbledon and start proving himself, because Ramsdale has been performing better than him. So I wouldn't drop like Ramsdale for against the Spurs game. And yeah, like Arun said, the confidence which he showed, yeah, you can make mistakes. Goalkeepers' mistakes are always under like microscope. Like even like what do you say? Great goalkeepers like Alisson and Ederson, they make mistakes, but the coach encourages them to like still play the way they want. So yeah, it's in Arteta and like hand and like to encourage Ramsdale and like take it to the next level. It's been a good signing. Like I will take that humble pie. I was against
I think it also like sends a straight message to Leno. Like this is the quality that is expected in this club. Like it is not. We know you got comfortable, but it's time like to light a fire under the ass, and that's what has been done. So he knows that he cannot like just keep on doing the things that he did. Like just keep his one skill set, which is shot stopping. A fantastic shot stopper, but he needs to be able to do other things too. So
one question on that, guys: will Xhaka get the same message?
Xhaka right now.
I hope so.
Someone has to perform better than him. Like now, like let's say who is that? Lokonga is performing better than him. So yeah, Xhaka should also get the message.
But talking on that signings part around White and Gabriel partnership, it's still blossoming. It's still there are people who are talking about White being not good in the air. There are people who are talking about that Gabriel looks like much more accomplished. But for me, Gabriel has been longer in the team. He knows what his teammates would do and what the teammates wouldn't do. So he kind of anticipates that for me, and White doesn't have that yet. But it looks for me, at least as a partnership, this looks like it is covering each other's deficiencies and working on each other's positives, right? So
it's like I told during the last part, it's like the back line has been slotted with people who complement each other really well. So in that case, it works well that like even though White even seemingly White doesn't like go for high balls, and like he had like I think 3 clearances or something yesterday, right? During the Burnley game. So it whatever where his shortcomings were actually like compensated for by Gabriel or Tomiyasu at points in the game. I think that's what makes like any team tick or work. Not everybody is going. Of course, you expect like everyone to have like the best games when we do go into matches like this, but there are always situations when someone does have like sort of a little of a brain freeze moment. The great ones do not have those moments that often. So when one of your players does have something of that sort, the quality around him usually compensates for it. When you do not have quality around that player who's making a mistake and everyone is making mistakes, then obviously that one mistake is going to be so glaringly visible. So I think with Ben White, he had a decent game, but his deficiencies were definitely like compensated for by the people around him. But let me ask you this: with the point that you made in terms of Ben White, like Gabriel, yes, he has played for us for a season. He knows like what we play, how we do, and all that. But Ben White, one of the reasons why we got him was the fact that he's English and he's already played in the Premier League. I'm not going to say like how long should we wait before we start complaining, but like how much of time do you think Ben White should be given to get settled into this team and start performing at probably the levels that we thought he would? I mean, it's just a question for all of you guys, just because of the price tag involved with him.
Yeah, that's the point, right?
5 games.
5 games.
He has come up with a number already. For
So
me,
have those 5 games already started, or 5 games from now on?
No, like 2 games already gone. See, he has
Okay.
3 more games.
Okay.
So for me, that's a loaded question because there are two things, right? One thing is like how much time would the fans give, which would be based on the price tag, because we always look like, oh, he's a 50 million center back, so he has to be like Van Dijk or this or that. We always compare to similar players, but it might not be true from a Arsenal hierarchy perspective. They might be seeing him as a value than just as a number, price tag. So the time that Arsenal will give him would be completely different from what us Arsenal fans would give him. So us Arsenal fans, I think Deepak has answered 5 games. So with Arsenal, I think he would have much more leeway. He would have a lot more time to prove. We gave Mustafi so many years to prove and disprove. So
he's still trying to prove.
So
like just with Deepak's point, I think like this could possibly be a message for the fans too. Like even if he doesn't perform to the extent, I'm pretty sure Deepak is not going to go out to social media and tell him like you have to die because you didn't perform. So I think like people can realistically think that okay, 5 games is a good number, but if he doesn't perform, don't go and like blame his family and like.
Yeah, but again,
many of them wrote White off after the first game. Against Brentford. Yeah. So when he lost all the aerial duels, he was written off straight away. And poor guy didn't get to feature against both Chelsea and City because of COVID and things. So you have to give credit. I mean, he's back into the team and he is performing to the levels that we want. You just have to look at the opposition that he has faced. If he is able to perform at the same levels, yes, like as Deepak said, in the next 5 games against higher opposition like Tottenham and all those teams, then it makes a good case that we've gone. And again, like, yeah, touching upon what Vijay said, his value is not going to diminish much because of the fact that he's English, he's young, and he's got a lot to learn. So time is on his side, and we just hope that, the best years are ahead of him. And he shows them in Arsenal colors. That's what we want.
Also, for the listeners and viewers, leave us in comments like what you think would be the realistic timeline that Ben White would be given or we have to give him. So talking about the defense though, Bob, Tomiyasu has had a couple of games, the same as Aaron Ramsdale, and we are seeing things that we wanted to see, right? That is a positive thing that he has been doing, that we are seeing that he's able to win aerial duels. We are seeing that he's able to make those runs. He's defensively more solid. So what are your views on Tomiyasu? Like just a quick one.
if I were to be very quick, it's like very much comparable to Nacho Monreal. I mean, whenever I look at it, I could draw a lot of comparisons between both of them, because that's exactly the same way that they both are trying to do. They're strong in the air, you know, they can actually burst up front, so when required. And they can play multiple positions. So when I look at, and wears the same jersey number as well. So I can straight away start comparison, and he hit the ground running, Montreal, when he came in, and similarly I can see the same attitude and things coming from Tommy as well. It's just the thing with all these Asian players that they are coming to the Premier League. I see them very much disciplined. You know, they straight away slot in. They don't really have too much complaints about. I mean, as much as I hate to say, you know, Son is as well one of those types where you can't really hate him because of what he actually brings.
Of course you
into
can
the
hate
game.
him. Why can't you really? I hate him. Of course you can hit him.
hate it.
Yeah, for the team that he plays, yes, of course. But yeah, I think in terms of what he
Even
actually
for the
brings
shit
into
he
the game.
does, like he looks like a nice guy. He's not. Don't get fooled by his.
Don't get deceived. Okay.
No,
But
don't
yeah,
get deceived by his being nice.
Bob is
But
becoming the
Tomiyasu,
English
yes.
commentator, like, you know, mentality. But yeah, Tomiyasu, I get the
Yes.
Montreal vibes too from him.
Yeah, like Bob said, we get like the proper Nacho Montreal vibe. When we signed Montreal, it wasn't with much fanfare or something. It's the same with Tomiyasu as well. We weren't expecting like a world class right back. We just needed an adequate right back, given the standards which we had.
we still have.
Yeah, we still have Tomiyasu is has been performing really great. 2 games, but still he won 100% of his aerial duels, which is tough to do against Burnley. So hopefully he continues his form into North London derby as well.
Mm-hmm. Talking about Burnley.
Talking about defense, Gabriel and accomplished thing and all shouldn't be said in the same sentence. He is still pretty raw. He doesn't give you the confidence. He still in that game wasn't let's say in control of the ball or something. He still lost 2-3 balls in a dangerous situation. When he was trying to clear, the clearances wasn't proper. People are going gung-ho about Gabriel. It was just, I would say, a decent enough game, not a great game from him.
But that is the standard that Arsenal defense have been operating under, right? We have always had mistakes and stuff. So
he was part of the defense as well. Gabriel is not that great player and all. He is still in the same category of Ben White as well. If we are criticizing
there's
White,
Deepak bringing us all back to the ground and giving us a reality check as usual.
Deepak, you will have your share of Gabriel's humble pie in a few weeks from now.
let's see. The same was given last
Pooping
season
on our party as usual, Deepak.
But talking about Burnley, we have to talk about how they were, Arun. Burnley, we know what they are as a team, and it's not a stretch to. I mean, you call them thugs. Basically,
They are thugs, yeah.
In the preview for the game. So, what are your thoughts on Burnley as a team? How did they do against us? Stuff like
well, like I said at the beginning, the most important thing was that we weathered everything and came out without an injury. You know, I'm always happy if we come out from a game against Burnley without injury. I still stand by it. They are thugs and they did attempt a lot of things in the game as well. If we want to talk about how Wood was bullying, I understand what Deepak says, when he left balls, but when you have someone like White next to you and all of the physical battles have to be won by you, I think in that sense, Gabriel did do a lot of good things against both, Wood and Barnes, because those two guys are very representative of how Burnley play in terms of how many teams still play a 4-4-2.
Yeah.
So Sean Dyche still swears by 4-4-2, having two banks of 4,
and there is going to be more of it because he's just signed a new contract.
Yeah, exactly. So medieval football is going to continue. They're going to continue doing that, and the same thing in their defense too. Tarkowski, and I think it was me, right? Every time Aubameyang tried to run for the ball, he was not just double team, he was triple team now. Along with the right back. So and many of those were not even given as fouls, which is very typical of how Burnley play. That's their game, what the game is based on. So yeah, like uh, they played like they normally do. I did not see them like doing anything different, doing anything better or worse than what they normally do. They come out to make sure that they don't let the opposition score, whether they score or not. And they did that to perfection with the bodies, using the bodies. And like we've been mentioning, Tomiyasu and Gabriel came out on top there, like in terms of using their bodies against a physical team, they did really well. So, Burnley, hope you die. Yes.
So Bob, there was some conspiracy in the social media about Burnley pitch preparation, that it was prepared as too dry, and that's why we ended up under-hitting a lot of passes. So do you see these kind of tactics from Burnley? I mean, we know they are dirty and stuff, but do you believe this kind of
Yeah, so okay, let's for argument's sake go into that conspiracy. So do you or is the people saying that if not for that they would have been slick and silky and
we would have scored, we would have won 23-0 otherwise.
Yeah. No, but again, Bob, that might be the reason why two of our players ended up with cramps at the end of the game, like both Partey and what's his name, Tierney had to go off with cramps. I mean, Tierney was bullied.
They are not fit enough. That is the only reason. Like Burnley played on the same pitch. Did their players get any cramp? We cannot give the stupid reasons of pitch and all.
First of all, this was not an Astroturf that we were playing on, right? I think talking about pitch not in watery enough, or it's all baseless, I would say. Going back to the game, I felt Burnley really did caught me by surprise. I didn't really expect quick movements from Burnley as they did. I mean, lucky enough that they didn't get to score any. Rodriguez missed an open chance, I would say. He was completely unmarked, and then he actually headed wide of goal. So that was a let go. And then Ramsey's save as well was vital enough. Gabriel did clear out a few things, but then we were not decisive as such, and I thought Burnley were all guns blazing after Cornea came. He came around in the 60th or 70th minute, but once after he came, he just riled them up so much that I thought probably they would get every possibility to score. Lucky enough that they didn't get a chance to do that. Yeah, I mean, if not for that, had we played Burnley, I was just comparing the Arsenal that we played now to the first game that we played against Brentford. Had we played Burnley at Turf Moor during the first game, we would have lost for sure, because this team or this personnel who were actually put in made the difference in terms of the result, and we just have to use this and try and work on
making the difference. Bob, you mentioned Odegaard being the person who would make the difference during our preview, and he did make the difference with the free kick, and even during the game I didn't
really imagine as a set piece. So when was the last time that you confidently looked at a set piece and said, one of our players would score?
It's interesting because like one of my friends just before the Saka foul mentioned that, man, I want to see a score as from a set piece. And then the Saka foul came and we scored. It was.
Is your friend Paul the octopus?
Last two free kicks, I guess, were scored by players who are hated by our fans. One was Saka and one was Pepe.
Yeah, but again, right? That was a very good free kick, and it's a very good way to score. We scored at the right time. We had a upper hand at the right time, and I felt Odegaard had a great game in general, right? Arun, do you want to take a stab at Odegaard's game for that day?
Definitely. First, I would like to be petty, like a vindicted Arsenal fan, and say that Maddison has not had any goal involvement since February. So that's the petty fan in me coming out and like taking the small W. Yeah. So I've always wanted Odegaard. Like I mean, like I know Madison was 70 million and all that. He's English and all that, but I've always wanted Odegaard because I remember distinctly when he was 16, when he was signed by Real Madrid. I was very piqued by who this kid was at that point. I did not like follow him regularly, like by watching his games and all, but I was always looking out for him. You know, like his quality was obvious. And Madrid is not a team that goes and spends on a 16-year-old. That's not their working model. That's not something they do. So I've been like looking at the kind of gameplay that he has. It's like a Mesut Ozil who tracks back and defends and drops deep and does the defensive work without, of course, I'm not comparing Mesut Ozil at 21 to Odegaard at 21. Mesut Ozil at 21 was a beast.
Yeah.
Odegaard is not there yet, but the way in which he plays, like the amount of time that he has on the ball, his ability to know where players are going. Like one pass comes to mind when he passes from like the left to right, he switches flanks to
Yeah.
Pepe.
Yeah.
He completely like changes like where the game was being played. Like for you to not just see that player, but to have a kick that can travel that far and actually reach the player is definitely special. Now, for me, he's a very special player, and he leads. That's another important thing that I found. Like he's constantly like chirping, talking about what needs to be done. If you notice, like he dropped back, but he dropped back to retrieve the ball, and he was the one who was pinging balls continuously. Like the 4-3-3 for me worked majorly in part due to Partey and in part due to him. We were able to like play that because yes, Partey was an assured presence, but this guy was able to take the ball out. You don't have to like actually see the assists. Like I told that right in the beginning. Odegaard might not be the player who get you the 20 assists in a season, but the things that he does to lead up to that assist, he makes those assists possible. He makes those goals possible. So his intelligence and his more than his creativity is his intelligence and positioning that I found was like so refreshing to see. This was probably like the kind of player I think we wanted Jack Wilshere to develop into.
Yeah. Yeah, and talking about the midfield, Bob, 4-3-3, and Arun already mentioned Partey and Odegaard. We know Partey's quality, so I don't think we need to spend a lot of time talking about Partey. But ESR had a forgetful game. This is like from the start of the season, he's been on the end balls, but he's not able to finish. Like even in this game, he had a very tame shot towards the goal, which should have been converted. In all honesty. So is this like a drop in form, or is this like a learning curve for ESR? Because it could be either, right?
Actually, I have a third option on that. It's higher expectations that we have all set for him. He's just another kid who broke into the first team just last year due to lack of personnel, and he's been carrying on the team right through a lot of games. So we've set a high bar for him to actually cross, and then when he's not been able to do so in the few games that he started playing for us now this season, we're quick to turn back on him, which should not be the case ideally. I know he's been at the wrong end of things, at least in the games that he's played now this season. But I feel certainly he needs some time, and with time and with proper guidance that he should be able to go back. Maybe he can reach the same heights as what he reached last season, towards the end of this one, or maybe even he could go even higher. But for now, I think we should stop judging him based on what he has done and just give him more time. I mean, even if you look at Saka, for example, Saka hasn't been as much prolific as what we would have wanted him to be. This is despite Saka and both Pepe and Saka starting, and Saka playing in his preferred position as well. And even with that, he wasn't. I don't think he had an impact on the game. He was actually being sloppy in front of goal. Yeah, so you just have to give these youngsters more time, and then give them more confidence that they can keep going along. Of course, we don't have a distraction of Europe, so these kids can keep going along the way and keep putting in performances, and with one or two games that they are starting to make a difference, they will gain that confidence, and they will start to turn that into performances for every game, that I would say.
Mhm.
So yeah, I won't look too much into how ESR performed or how Saka performed during that game.
Okay, so let's okay, even if we can give that as like youth as an option for ESR and Saka, right? The other two attackers, Deepak, like that is where the problem is, right? So Pepe, we know that he frustrates everyone. He has an end product, and he's good. He
No,
has.
he doesn't have an end product. That's the problem.
but of all the attackers, right, Aubameyang and him are the only two players who has some kind of shooting capability when you compare to others, right? They have a shot in them. They kind of also have like a physical presence in them. Rest of the kids, you could just Burnley could brush aside. These are the only two players that could hold on. But is it official now that Aubameyang is on decline now? Or is it still like the system is not working?
It can be partly due to system as well, but you can see like I don't know like how to put this. It was like not a gradual decline. It was like he was too good and he has fallen so bad. So something says it might be the system. You wouldn't like score be the top goal scorer of a Premier League and just score 5 or like 10 goals probably he scored last season, and he's continuing the same form this season as well. So it has to be a mixture of both. So coming to Pepe, how much ever we say, he does the same thing. You cannot like change Pepe, but still, like who else we got? We have to stick with him. Like, and he is our still the best threat, even though he frustrates a lot actually. It was like one of the probably like one of his like worst games as usual in Arsenal colors. His touch was poor, his pass was poor, everything. Even like Saka and ESR, they weren't that great. Not that great. They were also poor. Saka hasn't been having like great time in front of goal as well as if you take numbers, like Saka hasn't been performing that great as well. ESR, we know, like as Bob said, it's like higher expectations. ESR like didn't have like great numbers last season as well.
Yeah,
it was the way we were playing. He looked like a fresh thing. So we have to give time for both of them, but like Pepe has to step up. But we don't have any other choice in our bench. It's Martinelli, who is another kid. So yeah.
But talking about Pepe and Aubameyang, I mean, I need to bring Arun in. Like, if we are talking about Pepe, and if I don't bring Arun in, that's like a cardinal sin.
That's a sin.
Yeah, that's a sin right there. So Arun, I know Pepe. Whenever we talk about Pepe, it's about the price tag on him. But just a quick word: do you still stand by that he is going to be better? How long?
Do I still?
Forget about the price tag. Imagine even if you sign him for like 10 million, do you like expect him to perform like this? He's like performing at the level of even Dan James used to perform well for Manchester United.
You guys, I don't know what to say. I seriously don't know what to say at this point. I mean, like it's like being attacked from all the sides. And I at this point, like if I were to be fair,
Arun, I'll give you an option. But in terms of what to say, you can say Pepe to score a hat trick against Tottenham.
I would being the football fan that I am, I would never like say all those things right now. But, like, having seen how he's played, but like to be honest, like Pepe definitely is frustrating, but I don't think we have an option. I'll say it. Okay, like I've been his biggest fan, I've been his biggest proponent, but I think I think he might be let go off at the end of this season. I think probably the fact that we do not have another attacking goal-scoring threat or a goal-scoring winger in our squad who can actually take his place is probably one of the reasons why he's given more opportunities. But it seems like everyone starting from the manager is a bit frustrated with him. Like there are situations where we did see, I think it was the last game or something, there was a video where Pepe receives the ball and he takes a second extra to not pass it. He just keeps it with him. And you can see Arteta getting frustrated. So I do not know how much longer pieces that are disruptive to this play of football will continue at the club. So I think like the club will start looking at someone more of a goal scoring winger or Nabri towards like the end of the season. So yeah, I mean, like I'm just putting it out there, but I think I think this might be unless Pepe does something that's like out of the ordinary and probably scores like 20 goals or has 10 assists or something and does something extraordinary. I do not see him continuing beyond the season, given like how the club has not been shy for spending money. Yeah, so I think given that, if he doesn't perform, I don't think he's staying beyond the season.
The numbers shouldn't be seen at the end of the season. Numbers should be seen at the middle of the season.
No, I mean in terms of
comes at the end of the season and score pointless goals
that's
at
true.
the end.
That's true. That's true. Okay. So see, I do not like that. This is exactly why I said I have nothing to say, because I cannot defend this man currently at this point. Even if he scores a goal, I'm not in a position to defend this man right now.
But anyway, so let's put a lid on the Burnley game. I mean, we are happy with the 3 points. We have dissected it as much as we can, and we have a midweek game, although it's against AFC Wimbledon. We are not going to go into details because we know that it's going to be one of those games where it's going to be heavy rotation. We are going to bring back Leno. We are going to bring back Mari. We are going to bring back Suarez or Chambers and AMN. We know Lacazette or someone is going to play. So let's not talk about the team because I mean it's AFC Wimbledon. So let's just go ahead and do our predictions for that game. What say you guys?
You guys excited to see Charlie Patino? That's the only thing. I think if I were to be like talking about the Wimbledon game, I think that's the only point. So I don't know. I mean, like I'm really excited to see what this kid can do, like amongst better opposition. Yeah.
That's
true. Apart from that, I don't think there's anything. Maybe Balogun will get a chance to play.
Balogun or Nketiah, Lacazette, these are the players that could come in. Martinelli might get a run in. So Arun, what are your predictions for that
predictions? I would say a 2-0 or 2-1 win for us.
2-0 win for us. Deepak?
1-0. I'll go stick with the
1-0 Arsenal.
Bob, do you want to take a stab at the prediction?
Just a small note. Apart from Patino, I might as well be interested to see if they start with Karl Hein at the back.
I don't think so.
He's an established international for Estonia. He did give Wales a very tough time in one of those qualifiers. So maybe I'm just hoping to see if they are bold enough to actually start him against Wimbledon. But yeah, apart from that, in terms of the scoreline, I think it would be a 2-0 win for us.
No one's predicting even a 3-0 victory. I'm going to predict a 3-0 victory because it's AFC Wimbledon, for God's sake. And we'll play probably Lacazette or, Nuno Tavares, and all these are like first teamers, basically. I mean, not first teamers we want to be, but they are first teamers on the paper at least. So yeah, I'm going for a 3-0 victory.
Don't like say words like that. It's just AFC Wimbledon. It always comes back to you.
On that happy final note, thank you guys for joining in today, and for all our listeners, please do like, share, and subscribe, and comment out your predictions in the comment section. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.